everyone, it's Diane once again from Tattered Edges Design. I have two journal flip-throughs here today. They're both sewing themed. This one I just finished, is brand new. This one's been in my shop for a little while, but I put it in before I started doing these videos, so I thought I'd show both since they're both sewing. But let's start with this one. It is 5 3/4 inches across, 6.5 this way, 64 pages. It's a 5-hole stitch binding that is covered with fabric. You don't see it. The cover is scrapbook paper sewn to scrapbook paper with Mod Podge in between there. The front is a rubber stamp on coffee dyed fabric, and I markered in the colors there. Some fabric trims. On the inside we have a large-ish journaling card. That's a copy of an old Sears catalog. This paper is actually kind of, not really flocked, but kind of sort of like that. At any rate, the dots have a texture to them. And here's a place to write your name, title, whatever. This is scrapbook paper. It's little fabric. That's a scrapbook paper image there. That's just a marker around the edge to kind of look like stitching. This is a coloring book page that cut so the bottom didn't get cut off there. It's a rubber stamp, pattern tissue, washi. This is an old sewing book. This is ledger paper with some scrapbook paper cutout images there, some fabric and seam binding. Washi and ribbon. There's a Pattern Girl from probably the 60s, wouldn't you say? This is scrapbook paper. This is a different sewing book here from the 70s. That's a scrapbook paper tape measure there. Some tissue, coffee dyed paper. This is out of an old Work Basket magazine from the 60s, I think. It's pattern tissue. It's off an old pattern, and it says 17, as in 17 magazine says it's young fashion. So there you go. This is a perforated paper for cross stitch. Makes kind of a cool little paper tab there. This is an envelope made out of a sewing page that flips out, and inside we have a little file folder out of scrapbook paper and a tag that I bought on Etsy a long time ago, like, I don't know, 12 years or something, so I have no idea where I got it. It's just paper, heavier paper, but I thought it was cute. So that's in there. Come on, string it out of the way. At the top here we have little samples of fabrics. This is scrapbook paper buttons. This is kind of neat, at least in my opinion. It's just a printout on nice paper, but it is out of my actual sewing manual. This is a machine I use from 1986. It was my mother's, but it's still going. I still like it. So that's what that is. That's out of an old sewing book, Metal Bobbins. Coffee dyed. This is part of the sewing flashcard set in my shop. This is a digital printout. That's that. That's scrapbook paper. That's some a stencil with ink on it there. It's a vintage Pattern Girl cutout. Scrapbook paper. That's a scrapbook image. This is a reel off a seam binding package. Sewing page, some lace fabric. This is the scrapbook paper again with a pocket. That's an actual piece off a pattern. This is scrapbook paper here. It's a little journal card I made. It's a scrapbook paper image. That's part of the same stamp set as the cover. These are colored in with colored pencils. That's off a pattern. Ledger, that's one of those color guide things on the Salvage of Fabric. Washi, off a pattern, sewing page, fabric. This is a stamp and some washi. The other side of that coloring book. That's a scrapbook paper, a little snippet out of a book. It's another one of my flashcards. It's like a scrapbook paper, scrapbook, pattern number. It's a little booklet I made. Fabric flip. It's the other side of the scrapbook paper. This is washi and scrapbook and scrapbook. Here's another pattern gal. That's a scrapbook paper ticket. This is, what kind of paper is this? It's just like a heavier, almost like a drawing paper. I'm not sure what it was. Fabric and lace. That's off a pattern. It's a scrapbook. It's an altered playing card I made. That's another one of those color code things on the fabric. Right on the back if you wanted. This is how to make an elephant toy out of socks. And a dachshund. And line paper, which is graph on the other side. That's the scrapbook image, so it's the mushroom. This is some pattern tissue scrapbook. Another sewing page. It's another perforated paper for cross stitch. This is a little sample of stitches. It's one of my dogs walking by. You hear someone panting. It's a sewing page again. Scrapbook. It's a rubber stamp, and I just sort of drew what looks like a thread through it. It's a journaling card I made. This is an actual image from 50s, I believe. McCall's Needlework, about sewing there. It's a rubber stamp. Dictionary page, some fabric. This is just sewed on. I think we all recognize that off a pattern. A coffee dye paper, washi. Pattern tissue, that's a scrapbook paper image. There's some seam binding up there. Another sewing page. Scrapbook label. This is off another vintage McCall's Needlework, I believe. Turn any sewing machine into a zigzag model. So just think, years ago, some of them didn't have a zigzag stitch on it. And some coffee dye paper there. Same coffee dye. This is scrapbook. It's off a pattern, so is the girl. And some washi. This is a little booklet I made that's glued in. That's vintage 50s, I think, out of the back of a magazine. It's just a little, that's off a pattern, of course, and some trim. Just a little note card there. This is scrapbook. This is sort of a seed packet type envelope I made out of a sewing page. And that part is vintage there, and some fabric. This is just sewed. Oh, this was the definition of seamstress there, I highlighted. Some graph paper, scrapbook, more scrapbook. That's a rubber stamp, which actually is really nice. First time I used that. I like that one. A pocket, another one of my flashcards, a scrapbook butterfly. Here's another journaling card. This is out of I think it's a McCall's also. An ad for Fabric Club. Sewing page, fabric girl. It's a band, it's actual ribbon. The little scrapbook guide there to keep your item from falling through. This is a tag I made out of an index card. That's actually a real fern, pressed fern leaf there. Pattern and scrapbook and fabric. The back of it is a vintage pattern envelope. A piece that was actually out of a sewing book. And that graph paper again. This little flip, that's a pattern number. It's out of this sewing book. And the other side of that doll. Instructions, this one's a teddy bear. Fabric flip here. I thought this was kind of neat. I left the salvage there where you can see it says, free dog here, where it says spooled, and a pincushion rubber stamp. And it's a copy of a Sears ad there. Washi. And a pocket back here with a bookmark style journal card. And then the back again. Okay, let's get number 2. This one's a tad smaller. It's 5 1/4 across, 5 1/2 this way. It has 56 pages. It too has fabric over the spine, which was 5 holes. It is the same scrapbook paper, if you notice. Same scrapbook paper. And it too is Mod Podge. Oh, I take it back. It's sewn to fabric. See, this has been in my shop for a while. I forgot. It's sewn to fabric. and it's sewn all the way around. These are real vintage buttons sewn on. And a fabric pocket here, the journal card. That's an off the internet sewing machine image. Place to write your name with some pattern remnants there and pattern tissue. This is Child's finger painting paper. Washi sewing book. Scrapbook paper flips up. It's ribbon. It's a tag. That's an actual 1940s catalog. I don't know what catalog it was though, like Wards or Sears. Dress for Girl, right on the back. And a fabric flip, that's vintage 70s, I think, fabric. Coffee dyed, scrapbook. Fabric, it's a Pattern Girl. There's a atlas page. It's a bit of a sewing snippet page there, some fabric. This is scrapbook paper. This is sewing book page. A couple German vocabulary or translation cards, whatever you want to call them. And a scrapbook paper, a little tuck there with 2 tickets. This is washi. This is a planner page, a rubber stamp, little mini fabric flip there with on ledger. Washi, this is scrapbook and trim. That's new trim, although it looks vintage, but that's new. Scrapbook paper, some papers in there. And of course the other side of the scrapbook paper and the sewing page and scrapbook paper. This is foiled, see that? This is out of my digital flashcard set. Some paper to write on, some vintage seam binding. It's an embroidery illustration there on a dictionary page. It's a Pattern Girl with washi tape. This is the coloring book page, obviously. It's a little journal card I made that I sewed down to make it a pocket. And this just has a little note paper in it. These are rubber stamps. Well, one rubber stamp. Fabric, the other side of the dictionary, washi. It's that foiled fabric paper again. And this is a scan of trim, that's paper. And playing card, vintage playing card, held on by a paper clip with some vintage fabric on it there. The other side has a little envelope that folds down. And scrapbook paper off a old pattern, that's scrapbook. Fabric off a pattern, rubber stamp. It's just a little index card that I used to make a little open-y thing to write secrets. Scissors, picture, ledger, more pattern tissue, and I'm not sure what that's off. Something sewing related, right? And the planner page, and there's another Pattern Girl with a little pattern piece there. Note paper in a pocket. Fabric trim. Scrapbook. This is another printout of a trim. It's paper. This is real. It's seam binding. Vintage atlas with a tiny Pattern Girl there. And that's a scrapbook butterfly and fabric. Scrapbook paper, coffee dyed, fabric. It's a rubber stamp, washi, sewing book. This is scrapbook paper, but I cut it out, kind of die cut it, if you will, to look like the doily. It's off an old pattern. This is just watercolor and an index card. And here is the Child's finger painting paper again. It's off pattern. Some lace fabric. It's another Pattern Girl looking very smart there. And that's real trim, that's new. And another pattern, little snippet. And another fabric pocket. And an envelope with another just plain card in it. And that's the last of this one. Back again. So, These two are in my shop. Thank you very much for viewing. I appreciate it very much, and have a great day out there.